Well. Welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave on this absolutely unglorious Sunday morning. Has a little bit of a later start for myself, but it's nice and bright and sunny here, which means absolutely nothing to me. It means some more sweaty times, which I absolutely fucking hate. But we got plenty to talk about on the short and medium term timeframes, following up from yesterday's analysis, of which the higher term timeframes more or less unchanged, macro obviously unchanged as well. And with the big focus today on the weekly closure coming out 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight, that is going to supersede pretty much everything that I'd say on the lower term time frames, but because this is TA nerd session time, we'll talk about that as well. Anyways, looking at the CrownTrader application over here, which can be found at app.crowntrader.net. Once again, altcoins doing absolutely fucking parabolic nonsense as we do see the Bitcoin dominance heading down about 0.5% from a little bit over 61% to 60.5% today. And I believe that a lot of that is probably being had by Link, of which I do believe we almost hit that $14 target, which is kind of fucking crazy when you actually think about it. But so we'll follow up on that one as well. But more importantly, this does suggest that we are seeing rotations in the overall crypto market. So while Bitcoin is ranging in this nice $11,000 to $12,000 range, it is going to benefit the alts more or less as long as it holds steady, which is an interplay that we've seen before in pretty much only uptrends for the general crypto sphere. And it is a good signal that we do see that most altcoins and Bitcoin seem to be moving together on the macro as rotations overall are typically healthy, and we are essentially seeing not just rotations in the cryptocurrency market, but also with traditional markets as well, and just world markets in general. So that is essentially the rising tide lifting all ships, as we like to speak about here. Anyways, open interest heading up just a small amount from yesterday to today, or sorry, no, I believe it came down a small amount from yesterday to today, about 50 million. From 2.3 billion-ish to where we are right now. Although I don't really have too much to make out of that on the weekend. What is also interesting is that the fear and greed index has actually popped up to a 79. So this is one of the highest reads that we've seen in the past almost year now. And to go over here to the data tab, by the way, we can actually see that this is one of the highest recorded times that we've seen since actually storing this data since about late May. So it's not that well tested, but it is interesting nonetheless. If we could actually line this up with a chart, as we do see essentially the fear and greed lining up with Bitcoin's current price action. Again, not something that I put all that much weight on, but is rather, just kind of interesting from a nerd perspective. Looking at the global funding rate, still pretty much inconsequential at 0.02% worldwide, it looks like, which obviously is going to float, between different exchanges. But on the whole, there doesn't seem to be too much pressure on, from that end, from the derivative spectrum. So more importantly, it's not really until this gets above like 0.1 where I'd really even consider it as, like a counter signal, perhaps, amongst other things, obviously as well. And then looking at our indicators tab, I want to see what the momentum's looking like. And actually, we are seeing the short-term momentum turn to the downside for the first time, in like the last week or so. And the medium term and the high term are actually turning up or staying rather steady. Which is interesting as Bitcoin ranges once again at the top side of around 12,000. So let's go into the actual price action charts right here. Starting off with the daily, of course, and well, actually, no, let's start off with the weekly. And I just want to cover this once again because today is the day of reckoning or potential reckoning, of course. And the big bad area that has been and will always be and forevermore at 11,500 is going to have a chance to actually close above today on the weekly, which is also the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement here, which is also this massive liquid zone where institutions have been getting their big short orders filled ever since January 2018, and on top of that, we do see volume profiles suggesting that this area is a major pivot on the market. Not only that, but it would also suggest that if Bitcoin does get above this area, the same area that Bitcoin's been getting rejected from for the last almost 3 years, then we do have a confirmed macro change of behavior. I do believe that this is more or less a formality here, just because the monthly has already closed on higher highs. If we go to it just briefly for a second, and then we'll kind of continue on this thread, as I do think that there's a lot more to be said right here. But looking at the monthly, we have our second highest monthly close. And overall, I mean, if I'm just speaking a little bit offhand here, I do think that the monthly very likely will test back around a nice little backfill here in the high 13,000s overall. Now that when we are looking at a monthly, probably does take some time to happen, but overall, what the relevancy of what happened on the July close is that we once again confirmed a continuation of uptrend, marking this as your low, marking this as your high, marking this as your next higher low, more importantly, and seeing as we did close on a higher high, obviously this next high will by definition definition have to be a higher high, unless if things reverse literally from here coming into maybe September. Potential obviously, and it's always a game of statistics, but at the end of the day, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, and this is a trend that has been strong ever since 2011. Not since 2011. If we talk about the monthly, because the monthly did enter into a downtrend as of more recent times in this past run. But more importantly, it has been reversed right here, or at least has that first sort of stage of reversal. And this is all coming along the side of momentum oscillators turning them at the same time. We see monthly Stokes rejecting the bearish control zone, turning back up. We see monthly RSI kind of cradling out of the neutral zone, and more importantly, having a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders here, which typically is going to test right back into the bullish control zone. And just, for perspective's sake, we actually do see the edge of the bearish control zone typically finding the lows of major market cycles. Now, of course, there's only 2 or 3 different ones that we can really verify here, of which one of them coming in 2014, 2015, and then more recently in 2019. But for what it's worth, it is in the cards. And then on top of that, we do see that the monthly Joule has gotten more and more divergent away from both of these signals right here. So it did give the hold your long signal or start your long signal in April, further confirming it in May, and now just getting more and more divergence away from there would suggest that this is essentially efficacious. However, if we go back down to the weekly, with that in mind, kind of setting the tone for the macro timeframes, the weekly will have a chance to actually confirm above this level as well, which is a little bit strange here, just because typically you will see the lower time frame lead into the higher term time frame. In this case, where we saw the higher term time frame set before the lower time frame actually did confirm itself as well. Now, could that be, as I suggested, a formality, or is that actually a warning signal? I would say it's more of a formality than anything else. But more importantly than my opinion on that, which is absolutely fucking irrelevant, and I do not trade my opinion, trade technical analysis here, but if Bitcoin were to close this next weekly dodo above 11,550, especially even 11,600-ish region, again, this blue box territory right here, synonymous with the 0.5 fib on a bullish retracement, and also filling out the volume profile in this region as well, which absolutely drops off the fucking cliff above that region, would suggest that, yes, it has actually officially broken. And that's also going to be a signal line for several other things, of which the one that I want to talk about right here, right now, is going to be, well, let me take off this first, is going to be the weekly RSI, something that we've been talking about for a while here. Anytime that the weekly RSI gets in the bullish control zone, that is actually marking off the first continuation phase of a long-term reversal to the upside. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to a little bit of history in almost a little bit more than a year ago, actually, in April 2019, where you see that the RSI gets in the bullish control zone right here. If I actually can mark this off, which we can do with a vertical line, we'll do it just like this. And then we can look at the charts exactly where that was. Oh, motherfucker, it's actually not extending all the way through. But you can see right here, it would be popping up during this time in late April of 2019. It's very similar to what we're looking at right now. And for example, Bitcoin did put in a nice ascending triangle on the lows, reversed out of it on that break from 4,000. And then what happens after that? Gets into this next consolidation phase as it just stair steps its way upwards and onwards while getting the weekly RSI into the bullish control zone. And I believe at that point, it was the first stint above the critical zone for the weekly Stokes. Yes, indeed it was. Here's your tick right here. Well, guess what Bitcoin's doing exactly right here, right now? Well, we had an ascending triangle right here, breaks out, gets that first leg up, trades a little bit of sideways, as we spoke about this last week was likely, at a major horizontal resistance, by the way, as well, which if you remember back into, early 2019, everyone was talking about the 6,000 test and how that's going to be like the biggest sell of all time. Well, kind of similar thing right here. It's a historical area, just like this was a historical area. This one having more relevancy, though, as it's been historical for about 3 years, this one being relevant for about 1.5 years. And yes, time does matter, but alongside that, we do see the same sort of reads in our weekly RSI. It's got into the bullish control zone for the first time since quite literally that run, by the way. And we'll very likely close in there today unless we have like a massive dump before end of day. We can actually look at this level. Credit to Bali for this indicator, but let me pull it in. I'm using 65 as the lower end for my for my bullish control zone. And so Bitcoin would have to close above 11,300 essentially to confirm that. And on top of that, we do see that weekly Stokes are actually going to very likely be crossing the upside here as well. Now, it hasn't confirmed that just yet, but it will obviously, if it does, which is going to imply a closure above 11,300 as well. So actually literally in the same number there, then we will see this naturally get back into the critical zone, just like we saw right in over here. Now, this is not just, relevant to the prior 2019 cycle. We do see this same sort of setup going on in the last bear market to bull market switch up right here in 2014, 2015. You'll notice that Bitcoin got that first stint into the RSI after about a year and a half away from it, going all the way from January 2014 to this level in October 2015 right here. And that was actually on this major move to the upside. Yes, Bitcoin did ebb and flow from the bullish control zone to the neutral zone, but during that whole time, it was just a move back down to reaccumulate on the 21 exponential moving average. So that is, kind of like your healthy long-term ebb and flow on a rotational market to the upside, which is pretty much par for the course on Bitcoin as far as we've seen it thus, as far as we can see from history. Again, to be fair, really don't have that much history for Bitcoin, but relevant nonetheless. And this one also not coming off of an ascending triangle here, but a nice little bullish box, if you want to call it that. It's technically a pattern. However, anytime that you have a range like this, the break of the range is likely to be your major, your next major cycle. And in that case, kind of has the same sort of implications of what you're looking at here as an ascending triangle. It was a reaccumulation range essentially. So looking at what we got right here, I want to now reference another thing that we've been looking at, which is on our secondary charts, which is also going to be having a chance to confirm today as well, which is the weekly Bollinger Bands. If Bitcoin does close above the weekly Bollinger Band right here, while also maintaining a positive slope on the median band, which is just a 20 moving average, which should be pretty damn similar to the 21 exponential moving average that we just looked at on the weekly anyways, by the way, we do see a very similar read with all of the levels that we just spoke about relevant to the historical reads that we've seen on this, going back here to early 2019, where Bitcoin got its first girthy green diddle, closing above the top Bollinger Band, trade sideways above it for a little bit, and then massive move to the upside as it rides it the whole way through, essentially with a few stints below. But overall, it was the turning to the upward slope of the 20 simple plus the move outside of the top Bollinger Band that really did confirm this as, go time essentially, contrary to what we saw right here. Because yes, Bitcoin did get a closure above the top Bollinger Band right here, but the slope on this was actually technically down at the time. Over here, obviously very much angled to the upside, and guess what? Guess where the top Bollinger Band is? It is officially at it's actually officially at 11,650. So it's a little bit above that 11,500-ish region that we were speaking about earlier. But still, when we're looking at bigger numbers like this, $150 is not going to register all that differently, on a higher time frame like the weekly right here, when we're really dealing with ranges that are, $1,000 plus, and that's being relatively conservative. So again, same sort of thing over here that we saw in the past as well during the 2015, 2016, 2017 run this whole way through. Bitcoin plays off the 20 simple on its bullish dumps and just gets reaccumulated and then rides the top side of the Bollinger Bands on its pump. So all these things working together with each other, and I really like how this is casting a nice big net. And we can take this one step further by looking at some more what I think are actually important topics like historical volatility percentile, which further verifies this as something that I've just seen work well in the past. And what do I mean by that? Well, we have a very similar read. We have a very clear Bitcoin-esque signature here, is what I'm trying to say, with this whole consolidation going in from March of that, the coronavirus dump, right, all the way to kind of where we were in middle of July. This is a contraction phase as we see historical volatility percentile essentially go down as price action consolidates within the macro range essentially. Between, what was it, like 5,000 and fucking 9,000 essentially. Whoops, wrong one. And then we get that first big explosion here. This is on the daily, by the way. Now, the reason why I think that this is relevant is because historical volatility percentile, while it did get pretty up there on that last move to the upside, it got to about an 85, almost 86 read for reference. It is still maintaining a positive slope on this, on the moving average for this as the historical volatility percentile continues to print above it. So that tells us that we're very likely still in an expansion phase. And that makes sense after a 3-month contraction phase, or actually more than 3-month contraction phase, because Well, it's very unlikely that you're just going to resolve that in 2 weeks. For reference, the last time that we had something comparable to this was back on over here in the end of November to March. That same sort of reversal that we saw off the 3100 low, and then what happens? You get your first splurt up, gets actually red on this one, comes back down, contracts during this sideways action above all those levels that we spoke about with all those indicator readings, and then we get the continuation phase from that. And any time that we have seen historical volatility percentile contract for that long, it usually gets at least 2 legs. And we have another example right here actually too, at the end of 2018, where Bitcoin was in this consolidation in this ascending triangle from July to November, breaking in November, and then what happens after that? We get that first major leg down, trades sideways in the low 4,000s, and then dumps down another $1,000, which at that price point is a 25% move, which is fucking massive. It doesn't sound like all that much because we're dealing with big numbers, but percentage-wise, it is phenomenally huge. And so that's essentially, kind of the picture that I'm painting right here. I think that it'd be very, very, it'd be a little bit uncharacteristic of Bitcoin to be having these sorts of signals and just peter out after one big move. Now, does that mean that it's always going to happen? No, we're painting a picture together with all of the all the TA tools, combining them, but this is also going to be further mediated by another tool that we have, which is Entropy. And let me see if I can pull it out right here. I don't even know if this is the right one that I should be looking at. I need to probably talk with Bali soon, but this is very interesting right here. Okay, this is very fucking interesting. We've actually seen Entropy go up during this last week of price action when Bitcoin was in this trading range right here, between about 11,000 and 12,000 where we are right now. And Entropy has been going up during that whole time. So consolidation, Entropy goes up. Yes, that makes exact sense. This is allowing it to reset a little bit. And if we see even just one tick coming into tomorrow or anytime this next week of this turning green and going to the downside, while historical volatility percentile continues to expand on our daily, and that means, just getting above kind of the mean of where we were for the last couple weeks, then that very likely does come with continuation of trend to the upside. In this case, it would suggest that the indicators and just general TA tools are going to be, working in the way that they're intended to from a statistical narrative over time. If I got that out properly. Man, it can be a little bit of a mouthful sometimes, but overall, I think I said what I wanted to say right there. Now, of course, as with anything, does that mean that it's a done deal? Fuck no. I need to see today's weekly closure. That is what takes precedence above everything else, bar none, and supersedes whatever the fuck that I'm saying right here, right now. If Bitcoin closes the weekly above, especially 11,650 and gets that top 200 band, I'm looking for continuation at least into the mid 12s, short and medium term, and then we'll talk about long-term targets, which are probably gonna be around that upper 13,000 area that we referenced on the monthly. By the same token, if Bitcoin does come back down today and break that same 11,500-ish area that we've been marking off right here in this liquid zone, kind of the median of our current range at about again between 11,450 and 11,500, then this will start to take a little bit of a turn, and a little bit of a red flag is thrown. It's not a death sentence to what we're doing right here. It'd still be technically an uptrend, I believe, on the daily, as long as, yes, we are above 11,050 bucks, and I'd even extend that a little bit further down to more so like 10.9 to 11,000. I think it's just better to be a little bit more aggressive to the downside here, just in case it does reverse around, and that would be around the 21 exponential moving average 2 on the daily. So it is nice that these guys have confluence with each other. But my point is that if Bitcoin does break below 11,500 on even a 2-hour or 4-hour closure, I would look for extension to the bottom side of the daily range, which would bring us very likely down to the lower about $11,000 base. And then if that area breaks, it's not a red flag anymore. It's actually problematic. And I'd be looking for a big move down overall to our bottom side liquid zone, back down around here at around 9,800 ish region overall, with the bounce very likely at 10,500 along the way. So I'm not saying that, what I'm trying to say here is that while I have painted a rather bullish picture on all the things that we opened this up with, and while, I do happen to actually think that Bitcoin probably does make its way up there, just granted everything else, statistically speaking, more likely obviously here, and we will look at probabilities a little bit later. always have to have an area of where that whole narrative falls apart. And again, first warning flag below here, big, not a warning flag, but a big red dildo party, very likely down below here. And at that point, we probably have something new going on, and we really want to come back and analyze it with fresh eyes, as that would be a break of long-term structure, I believe, as well. And yeah, back down below 10,000 is essentially what I'd be looking for if that were to happen. But again, weekly closure supersedes all of that. The weekly can close above 11,000, but below that trigger point of 11,550, we'll call it, and I would still remain more or less geared towards the upside. Just as a default, the trend is your friend, of course, and that's just the way that I trade. Doesn't mean that's always going to be right, but I found that to keep myself, I found that keeps myself safe as a trader more than anything else. Now, as far as your ego goes with calling the moves properly and being like, I was right and I knew what was going to happen, well, that's just bullshit for YouTube and crypto Twitter and shit like that. You don't get paid for winning the ego battle. You get paid for having the right position, and having the right position implies that you are able to ebb and flow with the market's inevitable ebb and flow as well, which yes can come to the downside as well. And you'll notice that I'm pretty much always going to be bullish at the top and always going to be bearish at the bottom, and that's mostly because I don't call the reversal until it's confirmed, and then I might miss out on that first move, just like in 2019. I was bearish in this region right here. I was bullish as soon as we broke above 3,900 or 4,000, and I rode that position the whole way up to 14,000, of which I think that's still all documented on video. I haven't taken those down, although I don't show my positions anymore, mostly for legal reasons. After speaking with my lawyer and accountant, they basically said, you're not doing anything illegal, and you'd never have any real issues. But if someone wanted to make if someone just wanted to make a fucking issue and just drag out some time, they would obviously lose, but it's one of those things, man. So as always, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and yeah, it's one of those things. Like, if you start showing your positions on YouTube, you can always kind of argue, like, is that financial advice? Is that not financial advice? Fair enough. But I'll just kind of leave that, lie as it may. Okay, looking at the daily right here, we do see that daily momentum oscillators are actually still angled to the north side, although a little bit, it's fucking dishes time, huh? Daily Stokes still angled to the upside here. However, what do they need to maintain in order to maintain that upside posturing? Needs to close today's daily dildo above 11,400. Isn't that nice how all of these numbers match up with each other? That 11,000, this 11.4 to 11.5 region is just fraught with so many things, so many fucking things coming in from the daily, weekly, and monthly, all within this region that have major implications for price action, all agreeing with each other, which adds confluence onto that area being a major signal for both continuation of the upside or potentially rejection of the downside. But again, again, I really need to see today's weekly dildo closure. That would make things a lot easier. If not, then, well, probably another week of sideways and maybe another try at the end of the next week. What else do we want to check out? Let's go to the 12-hour as well. And, at the end of the day, this is still just an uptrend here. It does look a little bit top heavy as it is right now, and I wouldn't mind another short-term move back down to 11.5. I don't think that's problematic. But let's check out the 12-hour here, of which I do notice on the 12-hour Jewel, it is lining up for a sell. So if there's one major thing saying, hey, Crown, pay fucking attention, because you're always wrong anytime that you disagree with this, although it has not given a signal just yet. No signal has been given just yet. If this does line up for a sell, that would be a pretty fucking good sell signal. And at the very least, I'd be looking for a test of the lower 11,000s, of which then we actually have a chance to break the range, and then, potentially big problems. But for right now, momentum also is still pointed towards the north side, and let's see what needs to be maintained on price action for that to maintain that trajectory. 11,661. So Bitcoin's about $50 above it right now. This is closing in 4 hours and 34 minutes and 30 seconds, but a little bit higher than the other ranges, which does make sense. It's a shorter time frame as well. Looking at 12-hour RSI, I don't see it as problematic. I see it as neither bullish nor bearish. It's more so neutral than anything. I would actually be looking for it to make another low in this region right here, and then maybe confirms, if it is going to resolve to the upside, probably confirm some sort of hidden bullish evidence along the same trajectory. But now we're getting into some like bullshit crystal ball type nonsense, which I really want to avoid. So I'll just kind of lay off it right there. But overall, what I should really say about the RSIs, I don't have much to make out of this right here. Looking at the 10-hour, I'm curious if this one follows suit as well. And what do we see? 10-hour Stokes turning down a little bit and will remain to the downside as long as we close this next 10-hour dildo below 11,800 essentially, which is closing in 2 hours and 30 minutes. This one typically does lead the 12-hour naturally, as it's basically the same time frame, just slightly lower. We do have the same sort of setup on the 10-hour jewel, but it's certainly not as potentially perfect as what we see on the 12 hours. So that's what I really be paying attention to right here. If the 12 hour does start to turn against it, which I would not trust a weekend signal to be very, 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 very abundantly clear. And of course, the weekly takes precedence amongst everything else. But if this, if that were to happen, that's when I do start to really consider that this is one major, potential top being put in right here. So it's in the cards, yes. I just don't think it's I don't think it's the most likely thing just yet. We can look at probabilities after we get through this next little segment here, but going down to the very low time frames like the 4 hour, we do see that 4 hour Stokes are nice and erect, and they will remain erect as long as Bitcoin's above 11,550. Again, setting the range here, you'll notice this number comes up just about with everything or some variation of it, and 4 hour RSI is neutral as neutral gets. I do think that it has a little bit lower to go here, but I don't see anything obvious on it. As far as what's suggesting is it's simply just saying that this is sideways consolidation and neutral, which in the context of this current trend would still err on the side of continuation. I always go with the former trend until proven otherwise in a situation like that when everything else is neutral. Looking at 4 hour jewel, nothing there really, and 4 hour historical volatility percentile is still contracting. In fact, this suggests that we could trade sideways here for a little bit more time. It will resolve itself rather soon because it is a 4 hour at the end of the day. But realistically, it's not the 4 hour that I really care about for that. It's funny with historical volatility percentile, I care about like the very low time frames, like the hourly and lower, and then I care about like the daily, and then not really too much else, to be honest with you. Especially on Bitcoin, on longer term assets that have been trading for like 30, 40 years, then yeah, you can look at the weekly as well, but not in Bitcoin. It just doesn't even register at this point. Looking at the bi-hourly does look a little bit more downside angled. In fact, the more that I look at the bi-hourly, it looks to me like things want to come back down and test around 11.4, 11.5 once again. So again, that's not too problematic unless we start closing below, and then that would just insinuate a test to the bottom side of our current range. Hourly showing about, hourly, what do we have on the hourly? Again, neutral, man. Everything's right there smack dab in the middle. What is very interesting on the hourly is that we are seeing almost the culmination of a nice contraction phase going back to the second day of August. So going about a week straight during this consolidation. So again, consolidation in the range, in the formation of what seems to be an actual, a bullish reaccumulation formation ascending triangle is going to be verified by this following historical volatility percentile read over that time frame as well. And if we do get a break above this, especially just above this last prior high right here, that's likely going to denote it's likely going to denote the break of this current range, which would essentially be used in combination with price action above or below those more long-term levels, like we were speaking about, to the upside 12,000 or 11.9 really, and to the downside about 11,000. We'll just call it to make it easy. Is going to confirm like an actual, a nice big move coming up essentially. And we should be, I'm not going to say expecting, but I would say that it's statistically very likely to see resolution around right here at about the 75% full marker, which is coming in on Monday, late Monday for myself in the Helsinki time zone, and or Tuesday around that time, very statistically likely to break. So I do think that weekend time is essentially going to set the narrative, set the base, and then if we are going to be looking for actual resolution on a real move, early this coming week, very likely. Whether it's bullish or bearish, I do think that it's very relevant to think that we do resolve this range this week. and that means below 11,000 or above 10, or sorry, well, we'll just call it 12,000 for now. Just easier to say, I guess, and sounds better. All right, we don't need to cover anything in traditional marks because nothing's changed from yesterday to today, of course. Looking at the hourly, it does certainly look like we could very easily have another move back down to 11.4, 11.5 region, but that doesn't imply a break. And at the end of the day, quite literally at the end of the day, no pun intended, or pun intended actually, the weekly closure is what I'm keeping my eyes and ears open for. Well, not necessarily ears because that doesn't make sense, but what I also want to put the focus on here is something that I haven't really been bringing up recently, although it's not good that I haven't been bringing it up though, because it actually does hold quite a bit of weight, and that's a 3-day as well. The 3-day just looks like we got a backfill, and then gonna give another try to the upside here. Do we close it today? Yes, indeed we do. Interesting how that does close at the same time as the weekly. From a 3-day perspective, we do see that there's a nice liquid zone if we wanted to draw one in. Oops, let's maybe go to this chart. Fuck it, let's just make a new chart right here. Okay, we'll do something like this. We do have a nice range being formed right here as well, depending upon how you want to actually do this one. And where are you? There you are. It would imply that the next sort of move to the upside on the 3-day would probably resolve itself somewhere around the what is this, 12,300 to 12, about 12,300ish region, which is actually in line with the measure move to the upside. If Bitcoin does confirm to the upside with any sort of a 4-hour delta closure above, we'll call it technically should be using this high right here at 12,000 even, but I do think that you could use the weekly intra-week high at about 11.9. I think that would work just as well, actually. And seeing as this is starting to wedge itself into a more aggressive ascending triangle here, which does have its apex coming in. Let's see if this actually lines up with the historical volatility percentile read on the hourly. Yeah, it would actually, the 11th and 12th of this month. So early this next week, this would also imply a measure move as well. I'm going to do a very bad one right here, but I just want to see where it kind of align with. Does it align in that 12.3 to 12.5 region? And yes, it does. Actually, a little bit higher than that, showing 12.7. So I don't know. I don't know if I have anything else coming in that region. On the daily, kind of, in the midst of all this nonsense right here. So maybe I am being a little bit too conservative. Bitcoin does break to the upside. That 12.3 would be a medium-term target, probably only relevant for the short term, although I would be expecting a very short-term, again, pullback from that region, and then continuation from what this suggests to the medium-term target of 12.5, maybe 12.6, and then we'll see where things kind of set themselves up. Again, weekly closure matters way fucking more. And the reason why I think that 11.9 is more relevant than 12,000 is because we actually didn't see anything. We don't have the same chart here that we have on CMEs, and I think that the CME chart is just more accurate to begin with. CME chart in a nice uptrend looks rather nice. And well, the problem is that because there is a big premium on CMEs with regards to spot, it is a little bit difficult to match up now. But it's about a $200 price premium, and look at our last high. It's 12,100, so that would imply 11,900 intra-week high, or just weekly high for this one. So a move back above there, and especially a closure above there, will very likely drive our next algo-driven target, which for CMEs would be the 886 fib here on a bearish retracement to 12,800, which again, applying about a $200 price premium with regards to spot, that would align with that 12,600ish region, which is synonymous with the ascending triangle measure move to the upside. Again, putting them all together right now, but for fuck's sake, hopefully I'm recording. I am recording, so that's good. And I'm hungry as fuck, so maybe it's a good time to start to wrap this up. Perhaps let's look at probabilities as well, and then we'll go from there. So we can actually look at the probability of today's weekly dildo closing above that critical level of we'll call it 11,600 to be conservative with it. Technically, it's 11,550, but the more above it, the better. It's better to have a nice girth to it. And to the downside, we'll use 11,000 for now, just out of curiosity. It's a 68.06% probability that we actually do close above 11,600. I'd say that's pretty fucking likely. So again, formality with the monthly. Personal opinion here, but I'd still like to see it set in stone versus the downside probability 1.68% on the higher term timeframes. Now let's look at that 11,900ish region versus we'll actually look on a below target probability. We'll look at like 11,450. Again, just being a little bit more generous with it. to see what these would align with. And to the upside, still favoring it over the downside, 37.25% almost, versus just over 19% to the downside. So both of these are still, again, just because it has a higher probability does not mean that's always going to get chosen. It just means that it's more likely. So it's lining up with the other things that we look at, yes, and we have seen these probabilities flip around here and there, but now it is suggesting that BULAs are going to have a chance, especially with regards to the weekly, to resolve this range this week, which I think most things would agree with right now. So this is on a 12-hour, by the way. Let's look at the daily. Daily showing 39.69% to the upside probability versus 26.23% to the downside probability. This is again for the medium term range to the downside and the long term range to the upside. We'll look at 11,600 once again for the daily closure here, which is going to be the 12-hour it is going to be the 12-hour closure, but also the weekly closure too. And then we'll look at 11,000 as well. Why not? And that's showing 63 spot. That's funny. It's actually more. It's higher probability on a 12-hour than it is on a daily. Interesting. 63.05% versus 5.82% to the downside. Let's go check out some of the top shitcoins in this market too, of which Link I think almost hit our just above $14 target. I do think that it probably has another swipe to the upside there, and probably actually does hit it, as this is continuation. The trend is your friend at the end of the day, and it's one of those things. Like, I've been hesitantly bullish on Link for like 3 years now, since 2018, or I guess that would be 2 years. I don't know what the fuck it does. Don't know what it is. Don't even know much about it. But I do know that as far as charts go, it's got the best chart, as we've been saying for a long time. I mean, did this target already get hit or not? You could say that it's been hit. Yeah, close enough is close enough, especially when you're calling it from down here, I suppose. But does Link give another try towards it? Probably, yeah. And then we'll probably trade sideways for a little bit. So I do think that the party's over here for some time. We are seeing volume start to tail off here, just not using any indicators. So it's naturally going to very likely form some divergence plays here. I'd be looking for another swipe of the highs. Probably gets rejected from there, trade sideways, and then we'll come back to it after that. Probably sideways and down after that. I do think that the party's over for a little bit of time. Historical volatility percentile is red as the devil's dick hole, and we also do have bearish divergence forming on the daily, although certainly not confirmed. And as of right now, it is continuation. So, a failure to print new highs on this run in the next few days, and yes, we will very likely start to create some actual divergence on the daily. But for now, it's just potential, as daily stokes start to turn down as well after getting to the second highest time in its history, actually, since April 2018, which was all the way back here. In fact, I actually remember this back here. Quite nice. So, I do think that we're finding local, at the very least, local highs here, although I do think it's going to swipe it again. It's if it does put in a major high right here, it's going to take some time to put it in. So I don't think that there's any rush to put on short positions or anything like that. And I'm not even saying that it's going to be like a full-on reversal. I just would expect some sideways and down from that region, and then we'll come back and analyze it for if it's looking like continuation or reversal after that. And it's probably going to take some time, man. Looking at Mr. Buteral, who's been leading a lot of this run to the upside as well as just the general DeFi cones, and looks to me like a short-term move back down to 385 actually. Daily, is it still in an uptrend? Yes, it's kind of like a sloppy ascending triangle here. Again, though, just because it's an ascending triangle does not mean it's always going to break out to the upside. If this thing breaks below, especially is this yesterday's low at 374 on a 4-hour, I'd be looking for a retest at the very least of 360 and probably a full-on breakdown after that to like 330, 335. Although RSI is looking actually pretty good here, but that's a very low time frame. Let's go back to the daily. We were talking about a head and shoulders on the daily last week. That one has already played out, and that was a pretty damn big move. I mean, it's a move from 420 almost to 370 on a $400 number. I mean, that's about a 10% move right off that, and I'd kind of have the same synopsis on this one as well, essentially. So I don't really have too much add on to it after that. I do think that it gets another swipe to the downside right here, but does it actually break? I don't know, but I wouldn't call it right now. I'm so focused on Bitcoin's weekly closure that I just don't think that Butyrol is that obvious of a chart right here, and it'd be better to wait for the more obvious thing. If Butyrol closes anywhere above where we are right now on the weekly, I would be looking for overall continuation still to the upside, with the next trigger point at 415 on a daily or weekly closure, initiating a move towards about oh my god, I'm gonna fucking say it, 480 to 490, with a long-term target of 620. What the fuck, Crown? Jesus Christ. All right, well, fair enough. Hopefully this is in the time when all the Spoon Boys have already clicked off the video anyways, so we can talk about more nuanced topics. But yeah, does look pretty damn good there. Want to see this weekly closure. If it closes anywhere here or higher, I'd probably be looking for continuation as well. It probably would imply that Bitcoin closes above 11.6. What else do we want to talk about? Maybe some quick linkage on versus the Bitcoin pairing. Looks still good. I mean, it still looks like continuation here as well, so fair enough. Cardano did come down to our 1100 target, it looks like. Yes, it did. Hey, nice one. I do think that is I do happen to think it's putting in a top here. And if Bitcoin does break above 12,000 especially, we'll very likely see some like Cardano and the rest of the altcoin market come back down a bit more. I'd be looking for Cardano to head back down to like 950 if that were to happen. This would be confirmed as the next major local high. In fact, I think that it already is. And we have phenomenally major hidden bearish divergence here between this point and this point, which was this last high right here. Admittedly, very far away, so I don't know how much weight it still holds, but it should be good enough to bring things back down below 1,000 satoshis, probably in the low 900 satoshi range. What else you want to look at? What else do I have on my shitcoin list here? Ripple me nipples, still failing to get a higher high. Needs close above 29.5 cents in order to confirm a higher high, and maybe even a reversal. For right now, still looks like another rejection at the 200 simple and what would be another lower high, also all the while printing hidden bearish divergence if that were to be confirmed. So this one's weekly closure, very, 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 very important here as well. Would not be a death sentence if it does close below 29.5 cents, but it would offer up the potential coming into next week to actually confirm that, confirm this as a major high, which would then very likely drive targets back down to about 22.5 to 23 cents at the very least, and maybe more. I think that's probably good for now. Maybe a quick look at Stellar putting in a bunch of wicks at the 200 simple. Hard to be bullish when you're getting rejected by that area as it is right now. I'd still wait for a closure above this area, 1175, and then that drive targets up to 15 cents region. But for right now, kind of the same thing as Ripple. I need to see it prove itself first. If Bitcoin pulls through here, they probably all do though. It's usually par for the course, and I think that's a good notion to come back to Bitcoin right now and just talk about the ranges. To the upside, I'm looking for a 4-hour delta closure above 11.9 or especially 12,000, driving targets to 12.3 to 12.5 if that were to happen short and medium term, and then long-term targets initiated up to really like high 13,000s if the weekly closes above, let's call it 11.6 today, just to be more conservative there. If Bitcoin does close a 2-hour or 4-hour delta below this liquid zone at like 11.450 to 11.500, I would look for another swipe of the downside of the range, which would put us somewhere down around like 11 to 11.1. Of which that's the next major critical area. If this area does break, I would look for a major move down, very likely back below 10,000 overall to 98 to 9,900 with a bounce somewhere around 10.5. And we'll have to look at that one in real time if it does happen. But again, the big focus today is on the weekly delta closure. That's my what's it called? Signal. Yeah, that's my signal to get off now. No, not like an actual signal like the fucking Spoon signals, but it's my time to go eat a shit ton of food, and I'd like to wish you well at this start to your Sunday morning. Take care, and until next time.